Hello, I'm doing a book review, and the book I want to review is Wildcats vs. Aliens. Now, Wildcats vs. Aliens is a one-shot comic book written by Warren Ellis and illustrated by Chris Sprouse and published by WildStorm Comics and Dark Horse Comics. Now, this was published in 1998, and at the time this was published, WildStorm was actually an imprint of Image Comics, but later on DC ended up acquiring the rights to WildStorm, and WildStorm ended up becoming an imprint of DC Comics. So I have the comic in this collection right here that features stories of characters from the DC universe battling the Xenomorphs from the Aliens franchise, even though at the time this was published, this was not actually a DC comic. It didn't become a DC comic till later on. Now, Wildcats is a fictional superhero team created by Jim Lee and Brandon Choi, and this comic features the Wildcats going up against the Xenomorphs, who are characters from the Alien franchise. Now, full disclosure, I've actually never read the original Wildcats comic books, although I know there was an animated series made based on those comics, but I've never read any of the original Wildcats comics, so when I read this book, I was really unfamiliar with these characters. The only reason I read this was because I'm a huge fan of the Alien franchise, so I just wanted to read something with the Xenomorphs in it. And when I'm explaining the plotline of this book, you're definitely going to be seeing some of my ignorance regarding the Wildcats comic books. Now, the plot of this story is you realize that there's some really bad trouble going on this space station run by something known as Stormwatch, which I believe is another superhero team that's part of this continuity. Once again, I am sort of showing my ignorance here, but once again, I've never read any of the other comics that are part of this continuity, but there's some really bad trouble going on this space station involving these aliens. Now, in the beginning of the story, the Wildcats mistake all this as the work of this alien species known as, I think they're called the Demonites or something. Once again, I know I'm showing my ignorance here, but from the way they're described in this story, it seems like these aliens are major antagonists of the mainstream Wildcats comic books, but they mistake these aliens on this space station for being the Demonites, but when they get on this space station, they discover that they're a whole nother alien species. It turns out that all this trouble on this Stormwatch space station is the work of the Xenomorphs. Now, obviously, the characters in the story would have no way of knowing what the Xenomorphs are, but we as the readers who are familiar with the Alien series would be familiar with the Xenomorphs. But that's all I want to say about the plotline of Wildcats vs. Aliens. Now, I thought this was a pretty good story. Now, once again, since I've never read the other Wildcats comic books, I don't know how this story would compare to other comics that feature these characters, but as a standalone story, I thought it was pretty good, and I thought it was a really good alien story. And one thing I thought was really cool about this is they kill off a lot of characters in this story who apparently were major characters in the other Wildcats comic books, and I really appreciated that because normally in these kind of crossover stories, unless they're specifically doing like an Elseworld story, they normally don't kill off like the major characters. They usually kill off like only side characters or stuff like that, but I actually liked how they killed off characters in this comic who apparently were major characters in the comic books leading up to this, so I thought that was really interesting, and it definitely got me interested in reading the other Wildcats comics to see how this one fits in with the other ones. But once again, Wildcats vs. Aliens is a pretty cool comic book, and since I've never read the other Wildcats comic books, I can't really compare this to the other ones, but as a Xenomorph story, I thought it was really cool, and I definitely recommend this if you're a fan of the Aliens franchise. But yeah, sorry this wasn't as in-depth of a review as I normally do, but I just wanted to give this comic a quick review, and it is a fairly quick read, and once again, I recommend it, and bye.